Okay, welcome to this edition of Getting to Know, the series of interviews with members of the Essex Association and getting to know a bit about their ringing history, about the other things that they're involved in around ringing, and about what their life is outside of ringing. Today we are getting to know Beth Johnson. Hello, Beth.
Hello, Vicky.
Hi, thank you for joining me today. Beth, start off, if you would, just give us a brief introduction to you, where you ring, and whether you have any particular role within the Essex Association.
So I am tower captain at Shenfield, but I'm also closely associated with Brentwood because we kind of twin Shenfield and Brentwood, and so we ring at both towers every week, which is great. And I'm the secretary for the Southern District of the association.
Can you remember way back when, how and where and why you started to learn to ring?
Well, it is quite a long way back. I started when I was 13. There was a kind of a road show of some sort in my church, which was St Edward's in Romford. And as a result of that, myself and my brother and two friends who were also in guides with me started at the same time to learn. It's all a haze. I can't really remember anything about learning to ring, being taught or anything like that. The tower captain at the time was a guy called Bill Pullman. Of course, one of the characters in our tower was Donald Heath, who an awful lot of people know and who we lost last year.
So you said you don't really remember learning to ring. What would you say your earliest memory of ringing was then?
Yeah, I mean, just getting on as a band. It was quite interesting when we started. We had Romford had quite a stable band, so I remember being, in quite a good opportunity there, learning some interesting things over quite a short period of time, maybe less than 10 years. It changed quite dramatically, and it sort of ended up with my brother and myself as, apart from Donald, the sort of senior members of the band when we were only in our late teens, maybe early 20s. And so what we tended to do was just teach all our friends. And so we had a very young band and we were all feeling our way together, I think. Great. I also do remember having to go up into the bells. And it's a tortuous route at Romford. You have two vertical ladders to go up, and I'm not very good at heights, and so that was not great. I do remember that quite clearly.
What would you say you enjoy most about ringing?
It's partly that sense that you can completely lose yourself in it. If you're having a pretty stressed day or you're really struggling with things, and maybe the last thing you feel you want to do is go ringing, but in fact, after being in the tower, you realise that you've kind of forgotten all of your problems because you're so focused on what you're doing, which I think is really quite an interesting thing. And I'm sure lots of people get exactly that from their hobbies, but I think it's particularly true with ringing, where you really do have to concentrate hard. And I think that's kind of quite a good, almost like a cathartic thing in relation to the rest of one's life. And I guess the other thing I enjoy is I just love the people. I think, ringing is full of great characters. We're very lucky to have an active band with a very wide age group. It's a lot of fun, and that's important too.
What would you say would be your greatest ringing achievement or your most treasured ringing memory to date?
We had the most fantastic outing to the London towers only a couple of years ago. I'd long wanted to ring the London towers, but didn't really feel that either I or the bands I was involved with were good enough. But we're lucky to have a guy called Ian Stockwell who rings regularly at Garlick Hythe and all the city towers. And he said, "Oh no, it's fine. We'll be able to cope. And anyway, you don't have to ring all the bells," which of course is one of the things that you forget. You might be visiting a tower with 12 bells, but you could just ring 6. But anyway, he set up an outing for us, and we had a really great day. It was absolutely fabulous. We had all our juniors came with us. They all managed the bells beautifully. We rang some fantastic things, and I think that's probably my sunniest memory.
Can you tell us a story of perhaps when it didn't go quite so well?
Well, that's going quite a long way back, I have to say. I suppose it really sticks in my mind because we were ringing at Romford, and for some peculiar reason, I still can't remember why we did it, we decided to set the bells at back. The tenor probably had not been set at back in the last decade, and the slide had jumped the stop, and my brother, who was ringing the tenor at the time, suddenly realised he was looking down on everybody, and fell from ceiling height. So that was quite a dramatic moment, and involved ambulances and more ambulances with mountaineering stretchers in order to lower him down through the hatch. So we can laugh about it now, but it was certainly pretty scary at the time, I have to say. I thought he had broken his pelvis, which is why they were worried about him when they were trying to get him out of the tower. I think I can't remember, I think he might have hurt his wrist, maybe he did something to his wrist or something like that, but nothing that stopped him ringing. So, well, apparently when he got to A&E, they all thought it was a huge joke and kept saying, "Oh, you're the chap who fell off the bell rope," and everything. So
you mentioned Donald Heath earlier. Would you class him amongst an influential ringer for you, or are there any other people that you would think, influenced you as a young ringer?
The people I would say really influenced me, and I still kind of hold them dear, are the Stevensons at Hornchurch. When we were, as I say, quite a novice band, really, John and Clive came several times to help us achieve things, and I think the way in which they always run their tower is very welcoming. I think people generally feel that you can turn up at Hornchurch and we get a good ring, and yet they manage to maintain a really high standard there. And I think that's something that's difficult to do over a long period of time, which is what they've been doing. But it was kind of my first experience of having help from the district. Romford wasn't really a district tower. It didn't do a lot of activities in the district, but I've always been amazed at how people are prepared to help you, give you advice, turn up and help you ring. If you're trying to achieve something that's a bit of a stretch for you, you can ask a few people to come along and help. And I think the whole district setup is really excellent. And if you tap into it, then it's great. And I always encourage all our ringers to become members as soon as they can.
So you mentioned you'd been ringing around some of the London towers. Are there any other ambitions or goals or anything else that Beth wants to strive for?
Not in terms of towers, not particularly in terms of my ringing. I feel I'm kind of getting a bit to the age where it's quite tricky to get things to stick these days. So probably I have to try and improve what I can ring, necessarily, rather than achieving much more. I've only ever rung 2 peals and have no inclination to ring anymore, but I'm very happy when other people do, which is great. I think what I'm always keen to do is just to get better striking, better ringing at whatever level we're at. If we're ringing call changes, let's just try and ring them, make them sound great. And if we're ringing, a touch of surprise, then let's try and make that sound great as well. So in a way, that's always my aim, to be a better ringer rather than a more expert ringer, I guess.
What might you say to other ringers, perhaps to enthuse them, to encourage them?
I think it's really good if people always have an idea of what they're aiming for, so that if you have a goal, I think it's one of the things that we do quite a lot at Shenfield. I would hope that most, if not all, of my ringers would feel that they had goals that they were trying to achieve, so that you're always trying to think about what you're going to move on to next, and that you're always learning, that it's a learning process. And I think that idea that you can start at any level and go as far as you want to, really is one of the great things about ringing. So yeah, I would say make sure you've got a goal, make sure you are committed, so you turn up when you need to, because that benefits the tower all round. And then that you contribute and have a good time. I mean, I think the fun element of it is great. I mean, we do have a really lively and active practices, and a lot of laugh. Yeah.
If you were at a conference and you were given 2 minutes at the podium to talk to a room full of non-ringers about bell ringing, what would you say to them?
I think I would stress for non-ringers and possibly people who are maybe not committed church people, the heritage aspect of what we do. And I think that is really important. The fact that we, in a small way, keep part of the church going that has a long history, both in terms of manning the bells and ringing them regularly, but also in terms of bell maintenance and making sure that, you know, rings are well maintained and all those sorts of things. But also that idea that it is mind stretching, you know. I mean, it is a hobby that exercises you in many different directions. And I never feel that it particularly keeps me fit, although other people would say, they seem to think it does. When you talk to a non-ringer, they say, oh, well, you do bell ringing, you must be very fit. And you sort of think, well, no, not really, which is a bit odd. But I guess it does mean that you know, even if it's only climbing up and down the stairs to the tower and then exercising your brain, it's pretty good for you.
Is there anything unexpected that ringing has taught you?
I think it teaches you to value all the individuals in your band. It's sometimes not easy because some ringers can be a bit cranky and difficult and all those sorts of things. Some ringers don't seem to be able to move on. They don't seem to be able to achieve the next level, which as the tower captain you might be asking them to aim for. But I think really you've got to look at the individual, try to work out how they can help the band, and then how the band can help them. And I think it's also really important to remember that there are a lot of things going on outside ringing. You know, sometimes somebody will turn up and really look as if they're not particularly connected, and you just have to be very aware of the fact that there are things going on in people's outside ringing lives that might mean that they're perhaps not on top form, and be really sympathetic in that way. So I think the band can support the individuals really well. And you know, I remember going on a ringing outing years ago to a little tiny country church and chatting there to the guy who had let us in, and he was sort of saying, oh well, you know, we're not doing very well at the moment, we're not really ringing, you know, our practices aren't great, and saying, you know, for some people it is their life, it is the main reason why they go out, and how important he felt it was to keep the band going for the social life it provided for some of their ringers. So there's all sorts of different reasons why people are ringing, and I think you need to be very sensitive to that.
You mentioned earlier that you are district secretary in the Southern District.
Yeah.
What made you become involved in the management side of the Essex Association?
I feel I've had a lot from the district, maybe not quite so much from Essex, but certainly from my local districts. And I just think it's a case of a bit of payback. There are a lot of people who seem to do a lot of ringing around the district, and they, you know, they will attend all the events, and that's great. But all of a sudden, when you need a treasurer or whatever, there's nobody there holding their hand up. And I think that's wrong. I think if you want to be part of an organisation, then you've got to be prepared to take your turn. I hope it won't be too long a term, I have to say. But and I'm really enjoying it. I quite like being involved. Yeah. You're
also involved in the Association of Ringing Teachers, and you do a lot of teaching in their guidelines, but I know so you also help out a little bit behind the scenes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I've been really interested in what art the Association of Ringing Teachers have been doing, and I think their philosophy is excellent. I started as a friend coming up for probably about 8 years ago when I was still working full time, and didn't have enough time outside my other ringing and my working life and everything else to do much more. So I just paid my £50, you can become a friend, everybody. And then when I retired, I contacted them to sort of see if there was anything that I could do to help. And in my day job, I used to work in publishing and had, towards the end of my career, worked with producing videos, not Ben-Hur, I have to say, only instructional videos. But at that time, they were looking to get some video content onto their website. And so I've been working with them on doing various bits of video work and how-to videos, really, both how to get involved and also, once you're involved, how to fill out your logbooks and those sorts of things.
And off the back of your video creation for art, last year you also created a very special video.
I think that was so lovely, because I got to film Alan Regan, who is the Keeper of the Rolls of Honour, and actually see those rolls, which are just amazing. They're so beautiful. And it was really nice to be able to do something for the Ringing Remembers campaign, to produce that little sign-off, and that was great.
That video was shown at the annual dinner at the Central Council meeting in last September, and it had a lot of people kind of close to the edge of tears, because recognition of obviously the work that Alan has done with the Rolls of Honour, and just the magnificent effort of everybody with the Ringing Remembers campaign. It was just phenomenal. Yeah. And a fantastic video, and if anyone hasn't seen it yet, it's on the Central Council website. You mentioned you obviously used to be employed, and you work with art creating their video content, and you run the tower at Shenfield and support some of the other towers in your district and your district officer. How do you juggle all of those activities, and how do you find time to fit ringing in?
Well, I think juggling is tricky, and I think if your partner is a ringer, it's a lot easier, because then it becomes your social life. I don't have a ringing partner, and so I'm always very mindful of the fact that I need to not be ringing absolutely every night of the week, although that does happen occasionally, but we do try not to do that. So I think it is a case of making sure that you put in your diary the things that are really important, and that you're not going to miss, and then try not to get overwhelmed, because you could easily be ringing every day of the week. I mean, that would be no problem at all. It's that I say no more often rather than I say yes, apart from to the regular things, which obviously are sort of written in stone in the diary, which is great. And make sure that you've got backup. We've got several people, for example, at Shenfield, who can run a practice. It's not just down to the tower captain, and I think that's really important as well, that you give people that chance, so that they've got their hand in before it's essential.
You're now retired. What other hobbies and interests do you have outside of ringing?
I've always enjoyed what I would call soft crafts, so I sew and knit quite a lot. I've got an active interest in the arts, so spend quite a bit of time at exhibitions and galleries and things like that. I like to cook. I love my garden. I'm never so happy as when I'm digging in some mud. So with my Wellingtons on, that's great. And since I've retired, I just try and do a lot more fitness. So yoga, tennis, trying to make sure that the old bones keep going as long as they can.
Beth, thank you very much for sharing with us a little bit about you and your life in ringing and outside of ringing. Just as a parting shot, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us, or any parting words of wisdom?
Let's keep going. Let's make sure we keep it all going. I mean, ringing for me is part of my Christian witness, but for a lot of people, it's just loads of fun. I guess it's loads of fun for me as well. And keep aiming for that better striking.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Beth, for sharing your stories and experiences with us.